The crystalline spires of Luminous Prime glowed with a soft azure light as the planet's 3 moons rose above the horizon. In the Grand Council chamber, First Speaker Lyra stood before the assembled representatives of the Lumini worlds, her luminescent form dimming with each word she spoke. The latest reports from their outer colonies had confirmed their worst fears. The swarm was approaching, and nothing could stop it. The Lumini had always been peaceful. Their civilization had flourished for millennia through cultural exchange and scientific advancement, never developing weapons of war or building military vessels. Their ships were works of art, designed to carry knowledge and beauty across the stars. But now, that very peace had become their greatest vulnerability. 14 colonies lost. Lyra's voice resonated through the chamber, each word carrying the weight of billions of lives. The swarm consumes everything in its path. Our evacuation ships can no longer outrun their hunter-killers. Her form flickered as she projected the latest sensor data, showing the inexorable advance of the massive hostile fleet. The council chamber erupted in overlapping harmonies of distress. The Lumini communicated through both voice and light, and right now, the chamber was a chaos of flashing colors and desperate tones. Some called for surrender, others for a final stand, but all knew these options meant extinction. Elder Voss, his ancient form barely holding its coherent shape, raised his voice above the cacophony. There is one option we have not considered. The chamber fell silent, all eyes and photoreceptors turning to the eldest member of their species. The signal. A wave of gasps and flickering lights swept through the chamber. Everyone knew of the signal, the last resort, created by their ancestors during the Great Migration. It was said to reach the most fearsome warriors in the galaxy, beings so powerful that even the ancient Lumini had feared to settle near their territory. The Deathworlders, Lyra whispered, her form pulsing with anxiety. Humans. The mere mention of the word sent shivers through the assembled council. Humans were the stuff of legends among spacefaring races. They had evolved on a planet that should have been impossible to survive on. Crushing gravity, extreme temperature variations, toxic atmosphere, and aggressive predators. Every aspect of their homeworld had tried to kill them, and they had not just survived. They had thrived. We know nothing of their current civilization, warned Second Speaker Karis. The ancient records speak of their potential for both great violence and great compassion. To call them would be to invite an unknown force into our realm. Lyra moved to the center of the chamber, her form brightening with determination. We face extinction either way. The swarm has never been defeated, never been stopped, but neither have they encountered humans. She approached the ancient console, its surface covered in warnings in a dozen dead languages. At least the humans might listen. The swarm only consumes. The chamber fell silent as Lyra placed her hand on the activation crystal. The device was old, impossibly old, created when the Lumini first ventured into space and discovered they were not alone in the galaxy. It had never been used, passed down through generations as a reminder of powers best left undisturbed. The humans have changed since the ancient days, Elder Voss added softly. Our long-range observers report they have unified their world, reached for the stars. They build with purpose now, not just for war. Perhaps. A distant rumble interrupted him as the swarm's gravity weapons began their work on Luminous Prime's outer atmosphere. They had less time than they thought. Lyra's form hardened with resolution. We are out of options and out of time. Her hand pressed down on the crystal, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the device began to hum, its crystal matrix glowing with power unused for millennia. Ancient machinery came to life, and a signal burst forth from Luminous Prime, racing across the galaxy at speeds that defied conventional physics. The signal carried no words, no formal message. It carried something far more fundamental, the complete sensor data of the swarm's advance, the deaths of 14 colonies, and the brain patterns of a dying child on the last world to fall. It carried truth, raw and unfiltered, a desperate plea from one species to another. As the signal faded, Lyra turned to the council. Now we wait. Either help will come, or we face our end with dignity. She raised her form to its full height, glowing with the collected wisdom and culture of her species. But know this, if the humans come, nothing in our galaxy will ever be the same. The council chamber fell silent. All eyes turned toward the stars, wondering what terrors or salvation they had just unleashed upon the galaxy. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of Earth's orbital command, her reflection ghosting against the backdrop of stars. The holographic display before her showed the signals data in all its horrifying detail, entire worlds being systematically consumed by an endless tide of biomechanical horrors. The swarm, as the Lumini called them, was unlike anything humanity had encountered in their century of space exploration. Their technology level is remarkable, Dr. James Rodriguez commented, manipulating the holographic display with practiced gestures. The xenobiologist had been analyzing the Lumini data for hours, but they never developed weapons. Not a single defensive installation across 14 colonies. It's fascinating and tragic. Sarah's jaw tightened. Show me the swarm's attack pattern again. The hologram shifted, displaying the systematic advance of the hostile force. The swarm didn't just conquer, they consumed. Each world they took was stripped to its core, all resources converted into more swarm units. It was efficient, ruthless, and terrifyingly familiar to anyone who had studied Earth's history. Like locusts, Sarah muttered, but locusts with faster-than-light travel and gravitational weapons. The door to the command center hissed open as Fleet Admiral Davidson entered, followed by representatives from the United Earth government. The room straightened to attention, but Davidson waved them down. At ease, the Security Council has reached a decision. Sarah turned from the viewport, her expression carefully neutral. The debate had raged for the past 24 hours, whether to respond to an alien distress signal that might be millennia old, whether to risk Earth's combined fleet in defense of an unknown civilization. Davidson's weathered face was grim. The vote was unanimous. We're going. A murmur went through the command center. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. The entire fleet, sir. Everything we can spare. Davidson stepped to the holographic display, studying the swarm's advance. The Security Council's reasoning is simple. If we don't stop the swarm there, we'll eventually have to stop them here. Better to fight them on our terms, with allies, than wait for them to reach Earth. Dr. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Sir, the Lumini signal, it's not just data. The quantum entanglement patterns suggest they embedded emotional and experiential content. I've seen it, Doctor. Davidson's voice was quiet. We all have. That's why the vote was unanimous. Sarah remembered the experience, the terror and desperation of a dying child, broadcast across the galaxy in a moment of pure anguish. The Lumini hadn't just sent a distress call. They had sent their truth, their pain, their hope. It was the kind of message that cut through political debate and spoke directly to the human heart. We launch in 48 hours, Davidson continued. The 1st, 3rd, and 5th fleets will make the jump. The 2nd and 4th remain to defend Earth. Admiral Chen, you'll lead the vanguard. Sarah nodded, her mind already racing through tactical scenarios. The Lumini data showed the swarm's capabilities, but also their patterns, their weaknesses. They were powerful but predictable. They had never needed to adapt their strategies because they had never faced real resistance. Sir, she said, request permission to implement Protocol Omega. Davidson's eyebrows rose. Protocol Omega was controversial. It involved using civilian ships retrofitted with military hardware, a tactic that skirted several international conventions. But it also meant they could deploy a force 3 times larger than the swarm would expect. Granted, Davidson replied after a moment. Use everything we've got. The swarm won't be expecting a species as young as humanity to have this level of military capability. Let's keep them guessing. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Every available ship was mobilized, from sleek destroyers to converted mining vessels. Weapons were distributed, crews assembled, and battle plans formed. The entire might of humanity's spacefaring civilization was being brought to bear. Sarah watched from her flagship as the fleet assembled in high Earth orbit. It was an impressive sight. Over 3,000 ships, ranging from massive carriers to agile corvettes. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, designed to fight in conditions that would crush most species. But it wasn't just the military preparing for war. Civilian ships had been retrofitted with armor and weapons, their crews volunteering for combat duty. Medical ships were staffed and supplied, and rescue vessels stood ready. Humanity was responding not just with its military might, but with its full capacity for both destruction and preservation. As the fleet made final preparations, Sarah received one last transmission from Earth. It was a simple message, approved by the Security Council. To the Lumini people, hold fast. Humanity stands with you. The order to jump came exactly 48 hours after the decision. 3,000 ships, carrying the hopes and strength of humanity, vanished into the quantum void. They were heading toward an uncertain battle against a seemingly unstoppable enemy, but they carried with them something the swarm had never encountered. The indomitable will of a species that had evolved on a death world, that had survived every challenge their harsh planet had thrown at them. As her flagship entered the jump point, Sarah thought of the Lumini child whose death had echoed across the galaxy. "We're coming," she whispered to the stars, "and we're bringing everything we've got." The human fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Lumini system, their arrival sending ripples through the fabric of space-time. Through her flagship's enhanced viewing screen, Admiral Chen watched as the swarm's massive bioships turned to face this unexpected threat, their organic hulls rippling with altered patterns. "Multiple contacts," her tactical officer reported, his voice steady despite the alien horror before them. "Swarm vessels are breaking off their attack on the Lumini world. They're redirecting to us." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. The swarm had never encountered humanity before, never faced a species that had evolved in gravity nearly twice what most spacefaring races considered normal, never dealt with beings whose ancestors had survived ice ages, predators, and their own destructive tendencies. "Launch probe drones," she ordered. "Let's get a better look at what we're dealing with." The drones shot forward, their advanced sensors piercing the vacuum of space. The data they sent back confirmed what the Lumini's desperate signal had shown. The swarm was a hybrid of organic and mechanical components, each ship a living weapon guided by a hive mind. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's beautiful." The main screen filled with swirling patterns of light and color, the Lumini's natural form of communication. Their translation software worked quickly, converting the display into words. The ancient signal, "You came. You actually came." "Send our response," Sarah commanded. "Tell them to hold their position and prepare for evacuation if necessary. All ships, battle formation Delta. Time to show the swarm why you don't threaten a death world species." The human fleet spread out in a three-dimensional pattern that would have been impossible for most races to coordinate. Ships that had evolved from designs meant to weather Earth's strongest storms now moved with precision in the vacuum of space, each vessel knowing its role in the coming battle. The swarm struck first, their bioships launching clouds of smaller organisms that functioned as both fighters and missiles. They expected their sheer numbers to overwhelm any defense, as they had with countless civilizations before. They weren't prepared for humanity's response. "All ships, protocol thunderstorm," Sarah broadcast. Across the fleet, civilian mining vessels that had been retrofitted with military gear revealed their true purpose. What had appeared to be standard mining lasers transformed into point defense systems, vaporizing the incoming swarm organisms by the thousands. The swarm reeled, their hive minds struggling to process this unexpected resistance. They launched their gravity weapons, trying to crush the human ships as they had done to so many others. But human vessels had been built to withstand the crushing pressures of gas giant mining operations. The swarm's gravitational assault was barely an inconvenience. "They're adapting," Sarah noted, watching as the massive bioships began to shift their forms, growing new weapons and defenses. "Good. That means they can learn. Signal the Artemis group. Time for Phase 2. A dozen ships that had been hanging back suddenly accelerated forward, their hulls gleaming with a specialized coating developed from Earth's deep-sea creatures. As they approached the swarm vessels, they released clouds of engineered bacteria, humanity's answer to biological warfare. The bacteria, designed to target the specific biological components of the swarm ships, began their work immediately. The swarm's response was immediate and violent. Their ships began to thrash organic components, literally dissolving as the bacteria consumed them. The hive mind broadcast waves of confusion and rage across space, emotions that the human empaths on board could sense even through their shielding. "Ma'am," her tactical officer reported, "the Lumini are. They're singing. Their entire planet is generating some kind of harmonic frequency." Sarah nodded. "They're helping us. Those harmonics are disrupting the swarm's hive mind communication. All ships, press the advantage. Show them what humanity can do." The battle that followed would be remembered in the histories of both species. Human ships danced through space with impossible maneuvers, their crews operating at peak efficiency despite forces that would have killed most other species. Each tactic the swarm attempted was met with a countermeasure born from humanity's long history of warfare and survival. From the surface of their world, the Lumini watched in awe as their ancient legends came to life. The humans fought with a ferocity that confirmed every story of their Deathworld origins, but also with a precision and coordination that spoke of a highly advanced civilization. When the last swarm ship fell, torn apart by a combination of human weapons and Lumini harmonics, an almost reverent silence fell across the battlefield. The remaining human ships, though bearing scars from the intense fight, maintained their defensive formation around the Lumini world. Sarah opened a channel to the surface. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet. Your world is secure, but this is only the beginning. The swarm will return in greater numbers. We're here to help you prepare for that fight." The response came in pulses of light that their translators rendered into words. "You are different from the legends, more terrible in battle. Yes, but also more magnificent. We had feared you might be monsters. Instead, we find you are warriors with souls of light." Sarah smiled at the poetic response. "We're human," she replied simply. "We come from a world that taught us to be strong, but also taught us to protect those who need our help. And right now, you need our help." As her words reached the surface, the Lumini cities began to glow with patterns of joy and hope, light displays that were visible even from orbit. The first battle had been won, but more importantly, two very different species had found something in each other that transcended their differences: the desire to stand together against the darkness. 3 weeks after the first battle, Luminous Prime had transformed. Human engineering teams worked alongside Lumini architects, converting their elegant crystal spires into fortified strongholds. The once peaceful orbital platforms now bristled with defense systems, their crystalline structures housing weapons developed through the merger of human and Lumini technology. Admiral Chen stood in the newly established Joint Command Center, watching as First Speaker Lyra's luminescent form danced through a holographic display of local space. The Lumini leader had proven to be a quick study in military strategy, her species' gift for pattern recognition bringing fresh insights to humanity's battle plans. "The swarm adapts through sacrifice," Lyra explained, her light patterns shifting with intensity. "Each defeat teaches their hive mind new strategies. When they return, they will be stronger, more resistant to our previous tactics." Sarah nodded, studying the simulation before them. "That's why we're not going to wait for them to come to us. Intelligence suggests they're regrouping in the Helios sector. We're going to take the fight to them." The door slid open as Dr. Rodriguez entered, followed by a team of Lumini scientists. Their work combining human resilience with Lumini bioharmonics had yielded surprising results. "Admiral, Speaker, you need to see this." The scientist activated a demonstration chamber. Inside, a captured piece of swarm biotechnology writhed against its containment field. The Lumini researcher pulsed with a specific frequency, and simultaneously, a human-designed electromagnetic pulse fired. The swarm tissue didn't just die, it disintegrated. The swarm's greatest strength is their unity, Rodriguez explained. But we found a way to turn that against them. Lumini harmonics can disrupt their hive-mind connection, while our EMPs destroy their mechanical components. Together, they're lethal. "But we'll need to get close," Sarah noted, her tactical mind already working through the implications. Very close. Lyra's form brightened with what Sarah had learned to recognize as determination. "My people may not be warriors, but we understand sacrifice. We can modify our civilian ships to carry your soldiers and our harmonic generators." Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared through the command center. A junior officer rushed in, his face pale. Multiple quantum space ruptures detected. "The swarm, they're back. And they've brought an armada." The tactical display lit up with hundreds of signals as swarm vessels emerged from quantum space. Their bioships had evolved, their forms more heavily armored, bristling with new weapon configurations. At their center was something massive. A living space station that pulsed with malevolent energy. "They're not just here to consume now," Lyra observed, her light patterns showing concern. "They're here to eliminate a threat. Us. All of us." Sarah's expression hardened. "Good. That means they're afraid." She activated the fleet-wide command channel. "All ships, battle stations. This is not a drill. Execute Operation Thunderstrike." Across Luminous Prime, humanity's combined fleet rose to meet the threat. But they weren't alone. Alongside each human warship flew converted Lumini vessels, their crystalline hulls now housing weapons and harmonic generators. What had begun as a desperate plea for help had become a true alliance. The swarm struck first, their new weapons tearing through space with devastating force. But the defenders were ready. Human ships absorbed punishment that would have shattered most vessels, while Lumini ships danced through the chaos with impossible grace, their harmonic weapons causing havoc in the swarm's ranks. "They're targeting our combined ships first," Sarah noted, watching as the swarm focused their attacks on vessels showing both human and Lumini signatures. "They recognize the danger of our cooperation. All units, execute Pattern Delta. Show them what true cooperation looks like." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. Human warships deliberately drew swarm fire, their reinforced hulls holding just long enough for Lumini vessels to slip past the enemy's defenses. Where the swarm expected to find easy prey, they instead found an enemy that combined humanity's raw power with the Lumini's precise control of energy and matter. The massive swarm station pulsed with energy, launching waves of biological weapons that consumed everything in their path. But humanity had long experience with plagues and parasites. Modified versions of Earth's own immune responses, combined with Lumini energy manipulation, turned the biological attacks back on their creators. "Their hive mind is adapting," Lyra reported, her form flickering with the effort of coordinating her people's harmonic assault. "But it's also showing signs of fear. They've never encountered anything like this. Two species working as one, each compensating for the other's weaknesses." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. "Fear is good. Fear means they can learn. And what we're teaching them is simple. Humanity protects its allies." She keyed her command frequency. "All ships, commence final phase. Target the central station. Show them what happens when you threaten a Deathworld species and its friends." The combined fleet moved as one, human and Lumini ships executing a battle plan that would have been impossible for either species alone. Harmonic weapons disrupted the swarm's coordination, while human warships delivered devastating blows to their weakened defenses. As the central station began to break apart, its death throes broadcasting panic through the hive mind, Sarah turned to Lyra. "This isn't over. There will be more swarm out there." Lyra's form, pulsed with what Sarah had come to recognize as fierce joy. And we will face them together. The peaceful and the warriors, the light-bearers and the Deathworlders. They thought to find us easy prey, but instead they found something unprecedented, a union of unlike minds with a single purpose. The battle for Luminous Prime would be remembered not just as a military victory, but as the moment when two vastly different species proved that their differences made them stronger together than apart. 1 year after the Battle of Luminous Prime, the system had become unrecognizable. Where once delicate crystal spires had reached for the stars in artistic isolation, now stood a thriving confluence of two civilizations. Human engineering merged seamlessly with Lumini bioarchitecture, creating structures that were both beautiful and formidable. Admiral Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Lumini, stood in the newly completed Harmony Tower. Through its transparent walls, she could see ships from both species moving through the busy space lanes. Human freighters, their hulls scared but proud, carried resources and technology, while Lumini vessels wove between them, their crystalline forms now incorporating elements of human design. It's remarkable. First speaker Lyra observed, her luminescent form casting prismatic patterns across the chamber. A year ago, we feared extinction. Now, we're helping humanity establish mining operations in our gas giants, operations that would have been impossible for either of our species alone. Sarah nodded, watching as a group of human children passed by, their eyes wide as a Lumini teacher demonstrated the principles of light manipulation. The younger generations of both species had adapted to each other with remarkable speed. Your people's understanding of energy harmonics has revolutionized our shield technology, Sarah replied. And our experience with extreme environments has helped you expand into systems you never thought habitable. The tower's communication array hummed to life, projecting a holographic map of known space. Dots of light showed the combined fleet's positions as they hunted down the remaining swarm elements, but more numerous were the green indicators representing new joint colonies and research stations. The latest reports from the Frontier Corps are encouraging, Lyra said, her light patterns showing satisfaction. The swarm's remaining high ships are in full retreat. They've learned that attacking either of our species means facing both of us. Sarah smiled, remembering the shock on her superiors' faces when she'd first proposed making the alliance permanent. We've learned as much from you as you have from us. Your people's devotion to peace and harmony balances our more aggressive tendencies. A group of human engineers and Lumini architects entered the chamber, their easy cooperation a testament to how far both species had come. They were working on plans for a new type of vessel, one that would combine human durability with Lumini energy manipulation technology. The Council has approved the expansion of the exchange program, Lyra announced, her form brightening with enthusiasm. More human families will be settling in Lumini systems, and our young ones will have opportunities to experience life on Earth. Speaking of Earth, Sarah added, the terraforming techniques we've developed together are showing promising results on Mars. Your understanding of atmospheric harmonics has cut centuries off our colonization timeline. The view outside shifted as Luminous Prime's 3 moons rose, their surfaces now dotted with joint research facilities. In high orbit, the massive form of the new defense platform took shape, a testament to both species' determination to never again be caught unprepared. We received another contact yesterday, Lyra said after a moment of comfortable silence. The Zentari Collective. They've been watching our alliance with great interest. They're considering reaching out to Earth directly. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The same Zentari who refused to trade with the Lumini because they considered you too primitive without a military. Lyra's form rippled with what Sarah had learned was the Lumini equivalent of laughter. The very same. It seems our partnership has caused quite a stir in the galactic community. Many species are reconsidering their positions on isolation versus cooperation. Good, Sarah replied firmly. The galaxy's a big place. Too big for any species to face it alone. The swarm taught us that. A sudden flash of light drew their attention back to the holographic display. A new signal was registering, similar to the one the Lumini had sent a year ago, but from a different sector of space. Another distress call, Lyra observed, her patterns shifting to show concern. Sarah straightened, her expression resolute. Then we answer it together. That's what allies do. As they moved to the command center to analyze the new signal, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had come expecting to save a dying species, only to find partners who completed them in unexpected ways. The Lumini's grace had tempered humanity's aggression, while human determination had given the Lumini strength they never knew they needed. Together, they had become something new, proof that the galaxy's greatest strength lay not in conquest or isolation, but in the willingness to reach across the stars and lift each other up. Outside, the first stars of evening began to appear, shining down on a world where two species had turned an act of desperate hope into a future neither could have imagined alone. In the growing darkness, the combined lights of human and Lumini settlements created patterns that could be seen from space, a beacon of cooperation that would forever change the face of the galaxy.